In this lesson, we're going to learn how to animate the various doors into their open and closed positions. Now, this is something which is very, very helpful when you want to do a still image showing the doors or shutters or screens or any type of moving element in its open and closed position, or otherwise anything that moves or rotates or changes in shape can be easily done using this technique. So what we're going to do is choose a set of doors to start working on, and the ones that we are going to start with are these four here. The panel next to it is going to be a fixed panel where all of these four are going to stack just in front of it. So this entire space is going to be opened up when we open the doors. So the first thing you want to do is just select your object, and let's go to a keyframe which is larger than 0. As soon as you set a key onto any object, then once you're on that key where that keyframe is placed, you're going to have a keyframe bracket around that object. So that's why I generally start with a slightly higher key than 0, so that once you're in your 0 position, you don't have any of those brackets using up space or taking up visual space on your scene. So first thing, let's toggle the set key mode and basically just click on that. Then what you want to do is hit the first key for all these four objects. So all those objects are going to be selected. You're going to hit the key, and that will set a key at keyframe number 5, and all of those are now going to be set in place. Next, you want to move the objects into the position, but just before you do, you want to set your frame first. So just remember FF, frame comes first, and we're going to move it to, let's say, frame 20. Now we can go and take those objects and move them into place. And we're just going to move them into the open position. And we're just going to reselect all four of them and again hit the key button. Now you can exit out of your set key mode, deselect your objects, and you'll see that when you move your slider along the timeline that your doors open and close. If you do want to have a slightly more realistic animation, you could go and easily set each one of them individually. So let's say we delete these keys. We could go and say that every 5 frames we want to have our door moving one by one. So we're going to select these two. First of all, I just need to make sure that I'm in my set key mode, so this border needs to be red before you do anything, otherwise it won't work. So I'm going to move the door. I'm going to select the one just behind it, set the key for both of those, move my frame again, move them along, select the one just behind, set the key, move them along, and move all the doors to their open position. Just going to now make sure that I've selected the last one and set the key. So now the result is that each one of the doors slides individually. It looks a little bit more realistic, and this would be helpful if you do actually want to animate it. So you basically see that happening just like it would in real life. So that is it for the sliding doors. The same process can now be applied to absolutely all of them using the same keyframing technique. Next thing, we're going to have a look at this door that we have back here. We basically have a door which can open thanks to the spinner that is coded within the pivot door. So we have this open and closed spinner that we can now animate. So the thing is that these doors can't necessarily be animated using the set key function. As soon as you set the key for the door and then try to change the frame, you increase this amount, set another key, you'll see that nothing happens and you basically just get a dead door. So instead what we have to do is use the auto key function. This is very, very similar. We're just going to set a key on the, or at least you don't really have to hit the key at all. You just have to go into auto key mode, and basically once you move or change any spinner, it will set that key for you. So you're going to move your frame just like last time, open your door. You could say that you want it opened to 160 degrees. And automatically that frame will be added, or the key will be added onto that frame. So now as you move it backwards and forwards, you'll see that your door is moving. And as soon as you are on the actual frame where your key is set, you'll see that this has a little red bracket, and you now know that you have successfully keyed this door. So you can do this pretty much to every type of moving object on your model. And as I mentioned, it's not only for animations, it's especially great when you want to go and do a view such as this, and then you can show what it looks like open. So you'll hit render, then you can easily close it, hit render again, and you can do still images with all of these changes. So that brings me to the end of this lesson. Just before I do finish off, I just wanted to mention what some of the design changes were that I made. They are 1 or 2 tweaks since the end of the last lesson where we textured the pool. And the main one that you may have noticed is the thickness of this first floor slab. Basically, I doubled the thickness, so instead of 25 centimeters, it's now 50 centimeters. And most of that was done for structural reasons, because the cantilever that we have in this area is quite large, and you will most likely need a much thicker beam to handle that span, or at least the cantilever. And second of all, it matches up with the thickness that we have running along this edge. So just visually, if you look at this, you want to get this idea that there is a shell that is basically working around the house. So we have this type of an effect as it sweeps around the house. So that edge will basically be quite continuous, and then it flows through the rest of the house. So that was more of a design element where this thicker slab all of a sudden looks much better, and everything kind of has its cohesion now. The other thing that I did is there are a couple of tiny changes. So you'll see that there are white ceilings added. So all of this was done just by working in a single edit poly, by selecting the edges, connecting them, chamfering them, extruding them, and all of this we had done when we worked on the window frames and all those other elements. So that's why it's not included in any lesson, because it's all just a repetition of what we've already learned. Certain elements like this, the planter, I've just made it slightly smaller by changing the vertice positions in the editable poly, and a couple of other tiny changes as well. Same thing here with the ceiling being added, and a few very, very minor changes such as the balustrade and so forth. So all of those are very local tweaks, nothing really important that you would have missed out on. It just was a slight refinement of the actual design itself. So next, in the next lesson, we're going to look at how we can now add 3D planting into our entire scene, and we're going to look at what are the techniques or strategies if you want to have a lot of plants or get a lot of detail and use very high densities without it necessarily overcrowding or adding too much size to your models. So that's going to be done all in the next lesson, so hang around for that and give that a watch. Thank you very much.